Okay.
That's it. Okay. Sorry for the delay and welcome. This is a regular monthly meeting of the Princeton Historic Preservation Commission, held electronically via Zoom on November 20th, 2023 at approximately 4:13 p.m. Pursuant to Section 13 of the Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of the time, place, and agenda of this meeting has been transmitted to the Princeton Packet, Town Topics, the Times, the Trentonian, and we filed a copy with the clerk of Princeton, who has posted it to the municipal website, www.princetonnj.gov/meetings. Okay, Elizabeth, do you want to do the roll call?
Yes. Ms. Satterfield?
Here, thank the Lord.
Mr. Shatskin, he had to leave, so he's not here. Ms. Howard, she's also absent today. Mr. Pyle? Mr. Endersby? Albert, you're muted.
Unmute.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Slightly.
Good.
Okay, Ms. Lewandowski,
Here.
Ms. Friedman,
Here.
Mr. Shore,
Present.
and Ms. Capozzoli.
I'm here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Great. So, any announcements? I don't think there's anything specific. Let's go on to the minutes. We have the minutes of October 17th, 2022. You should have received those recently.
Very recently.
Very
Sorry.
recently. Are there any changes? Yeah, Christine.
On page 1 and on another page, they refer to Justin as planning director, and this was October 17th, 2022. Was he planning director, or did he have a different title? Because if he did, then that should be changed.
I don't know. I know at one point he was the acting planning director.
I think he was the acting at that time,
He was the acting, okay.
acting planning director.
Yeah, so that should be corrected then.
Okay, so it's on page 1 and on another page. Let me see if I marked it. Page 5.
Page 5, and this is October, right?
October. And
Mhm.
on
Hold on,
page-
Christine. We're on page 5. Oh, here I see. Under staff. Okay,
and on page 2, Daniel, referring to Daniel Barsky, first sentence is misspelled.
let's see. Hold on, Daniel. Oh, Daniel, IEL. Okay.
Anyone left?
Anything else?
Well, that's better.
That's all I have.
Okay. So if there are no other changes, would someone like to make a motion to approve the minutes for?
So moved.
Okay, thank you. Second? Okay, thanks, Albert. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye,
So approve with changes, right?
yes.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, and then the minutes for November 21st, 2022. Changes with those, Christine?
Yes, on page 1, my name is misspelled 3 times.
The
And
same
then-
way?
And then it's misspelled, sometimes it's spelled right, sometimes it's spelled wrong. On page 4, it's spelled wrong once that I picked up. And on page 5, third paragraph, which is one sentence, it says the proposed new 3 cars garage. And I don't know if that's necessary. I know it takes 3 cars, but we usually
Car.
say it in the singular. So
Are you on page 5, Christine?
on page 5,
Okay, where on page 5? What paragraph?
third paragraph, members involved.
Yeah. 3 car, take off the S. Yeah.
It's just really spelling and grammar. That's it. That's
All
all.
right. Thank you. Any other changes? If not, would someone like to move to approve the minutes for November 21st, 2022? Christine? Okay, and who'd like to second?
With changes. I move
Oh,
with,
with changes. I saw Shirley second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you so much. And thanks for getting those done, Elizabeth. We really appreciate it.
Oh, they weren't mine. I didn't do them.
I know. I mean, that you at least got them to the meeting.
Yeah,
was-
thank you.
Good. That was good. So we have an application for 6 Mercer Street. It's the Nassau Club. Is the applicant here?
I'm bringing Mr. Kennedy over, who is the applicant's attorney, and I will see who he has on his list to come over. Hi,
Uh,
Ryan. Could you
Good evening,
tell me who
everyone.
you?
Yep,
Is
thank you, Madam Chairman and Elizabeth. We've got a few attendees here. I'm just refocusing my eyes now that I can see the list. But we should have Pete Calloway,
Okay, hold on. I see him. Yes, hold on. I'll
Uh,
bring him over. Yes.
the head of facilities for the club, Richard Von Barthold, who is our window consultant, and then Stephen Peretti, who is the club, actually the outgoing manager of the club. So those 3
Oh,
folks.
I see Stephen. Okay. I think I've got them all. Okay.
All right. And thank you for bringing everybody over. I think we've got everybody now.
And we.
Yeah,
have-
I'm still seeing Pete Calloway on the attendee list rather than as a
Oh,
let me
panelist,
see.
but I
Oh,
think other than
okay.
that,
I don't know. He didn't get over here.
and if for some technical reason, he'll,
He's not coming.
I don't
over.
want to say this, but well, the 2 important witnesses, we was hoping to have him introduce the project, but we probably could get by without him if there's some technical reason why it's not actually bringing him over.
Okay, yeah, oh,
There
there
we,
we
I
go. Okay,
think he,
sure.
fourth click is the charm, as they
That's
say.
right.
Yeah,
The 20th click, that's a charm.
that's great. All right, so we're all here. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, everybody, for coming today. Elizabeth, you wrote a report that we received recently, and I just wondered if you could summarize it briefly, because it's like 39 pages.
Ah,
Okay, so I'll start by just giving the information on the property. So the Nassau Club has filed an application pursuant to the Princeton Historic Preservation Ordinance for replacing windows on the building, which is located at 6 Mercer Street. The property is identified as block 441.01, lot 18 on the Princeton tax map and is in the R4 zone of the former borough. The property does fall within the Mercer Hill Historic District of the Municipal Overlay Zoning Map and is in the State and National Register of Historic Places, Princeton Historic District. So on September 21st of this year, Mr. Peretti was kind enough to accompany me on the property so I could have a look at the windows. And I think that my number count is wrong. I did it multiple times, but it might have been that I was just tired, but the numbers kept on coming up right. But there are a lot of windows on this building, and as you can see by the photographs that were part of the submission from the applicant, and I believe I included two also, you could see that especially on the east elevation and on the north elevation, which is the street facing, there are a lot of windows there. So they originally, I thought that they were actually replacing all of them, but according to the photograph submission they included, there were some that they opted out not to replace. But I would say the majority of them are proposed to be replaced. All the ones, I believe, in the front, almost all the ones on the west elevation, and most of the ones on the east, except for, I believe, the basement and some that are in the back of the building, towards the back. And also in the back, there are some that will not be proposed to be replaced. And anyway, so after doing a little inventory on the windows there, I felt that the existing windows were great candidates for window repair and restoration. And they could be repaired for it to be airtight, to reduce heat loss, replace any glass that was broken, and also improve the energy efficiency and operability, because some of them were not able to open up and down. And for those reasons, and I believe the HPC will recall many meetings ago, actually years ago, that it was determined that if there is a large quantity of windows to be replaced, that the HPC wants to see them. So that's the reason that it could not be reviewed administratively, and it's coming before the full commission. So just to situate the property, I believe most of you know where it is. It's situated on the south side of Mercer Street, between the crossroads of University Place and Alexander Street. It's in a quite diversified section of town. There's a lot of different uses, ranging from the Princeton University and Princeton Theological Seminary academic offices and faculty housing. There is the Princeton War Memorial very close by. There are foundations and organization offices, some professional offices, the Trinity Church, and obviously residential use. But the building seems to fit in well within this area as far as its scale and use. And it is historic. It's been there a long time. The property is designated on the Princeton Historic Overlay District as Type 2, which we all know is anything that's visible from the public right-of-way. So the visibility on this property is from Mercer Street and University Place. And there is a photograph which shows views to the east elevation from University Place. Just a little background information. We did have an inventory from the 1967 Bassett survey, which showed the building as a 2.5-story building, which was built in 1814. It was shown on the first Sanborn map that was surveyed. It started out as a 2-story. It was an L-shaped. There was a full covered front porch in the front, and there were 2 in the back, and there was one small one on that leg extension of the L shape that faced the street. It really didn't change that much at one time. That small street-facing porch was removed, and then in 1918, there was a small bay window that was added on the east elevation, but otherwise the footprint really did remain the same until 1911, where there was an addition to the property. And in 1969, there was a banquet dining room that was added. And then in 1992, there were extensive renovations to the building itself. So the Nassau Club was founded in 1889 by Woodrow Wilson and others as a town and gown club, which was intended to bring Princeton University faculty together with the townspeople. The clubhouse was originally built as a home of Samuel Miller, the second professor of the Princeton Theological Seminary, on land that once belonged to his father-in-law, Jonathan Dickinson Sargent, the Continental Congress. Sargent had built a large house there on the same site, but shortly before the Revolutionary War. It was burned down during the British occupation prior to the Princeton battle. So the club currently is a social club that provides dining, social events, spaces, and guest rooms on the upper floor for members. It started out as a club for men only, but it's for many decades, it's expanded its membership for women as well. The building is situated on the parcel that contains 1.06 acres. The original section of the building, as you can see from the Sanborn map, is the large square block that's on the street facing side, the western end of that building. It is 5 bay. It's symmetrically positioned with a centered front door under a covered entry, which obviously the front porch is no longer there. It's been reduced just to the entryway. The fenestrations align between the first and second floors, and there are 3 shed dormers in the attic, which are equally spaced. So the addition on the east side pretty much carries that same design over to the east addition. It has similar fenestrations. They're symmetrically positioned. It's got 1 centered dormer, and then it has rows of windows on its east elevation. The addition is consistent in design, material, and fenestration patterns to the original building. Almost all the windows are 6/6. There are 2 windows on the front east addition that are 4/4, and then the dormer ones are 1/1. There are storm windows on almost all the windows. I'm not sure if they are on the attic ones, but the ones on the first and second floor, and many in the back also do have these storm windows. As far as the circulation on the site, on the west side of the property, there is a 2-way access drive which allows you to have limited parking in the front, but the majority of the parking is in the rear, and that drive loops around as a 1-way egress towards the back of the building and exits out on the east property line. There is a large deck in the back that's accessed from the dining room, and there is a porte-cochere also on the west side of the building that is available for drop-off and pickup. And there is a staircase in the back of the parking area that provides access to the Princeton University parking lot down to University Place and Edwards. So that's pretty much it for the site and the history. As everyone knows, there's always a window analysis requested for window replacements. These are window inserts that's being proposed. They are Marvin Ultimate Double Hung Insert, the G2, which are aluminum clad wood windows. They have simulated divided light with spacer bars, which will be installed in the 4/4 windows and the 6/6 replacement windows. The applicant had indicated these were selected to avoid material alterations to the existing windows. And so they would fit within there. You would not have to reframe them. They could slide in and you could take the other ones out. So the window analysis, you could look at it. It's classified according to what they had in their detail sheet. They have tape A, A1, all the way down to J. And the ones that are in bold show the differential. We use the former borough policy for window replacements, which the differential that was allowed was 1/4 inch. And sometimes it would allow for 1/2 inch. But again, this is keeping in mind the consistency of proportional changes. So if you have an 1/8 and an 1/8 to 1/8, going across the horizontal dimensioning, that could add up to multiple dimensions. It could add up to 1 inch or 2. So that's just for you to keep in mind. And if anyone has any questions on that, I'd be happy to answer them. So we're just going to go down to, obviously the criteria are there. I think the ones that I highlighted, which is more applicable for this application, is on page 7, which talks about the preservation or enhancing the historical architectural value and character of the structure. Talks about the original material being retained, restored, or replaced in kind. And it talks about retaining the original fabric when at all available. So under the recommendations and comments, so the comparative analysis does show that there are differential changes to the 1/4 inch, which the HPC uses as guidelines. Their glass panes are slightly smaller, top and bottom rails and stile widths are larger. The meeting rail is slightly narrower. These dimensional differentials are carried through on the 6/6 windows and the 4/4 windows. The quantity of windows among the same building elevations proposed to replace will make these changes more noticeable because there are so many of these windows there, especially on the east and front facade. The custom Marvin products do a very good job of replicating window dimensions, except for we all know that the Mutton dimensions are usually a bit wider. The Marvin Integrity series are their historic line. However, they are not custom, that therefore you use the dimensions that are available in their catalog. So it depends on how important it is and how impactful it is for these replacement windows and the differential in these dimensions for HPC to determine, one, if they feel that the windows are appropriate to be replaced, and if so, do they find the integrity windows that are proposed acceptable, or do they find that they should be custom? And again, should they be, does every elevation have the same priority? Does the front elevation have more of a priority and the side elevations have a secondary priority, or whatever combination? And that's for the HPC to determine. And I think that, you know, just to go off script, I think the important thing is here is it's actually the number of windows that are on an elevation and how you're going to view them. And if these changes are going to be impactful. And if there is an opportunity for repairing the windows, I think that that's always a good option. And I believe that the Nassau Club really was not interested in that. So we asked that they speak to that. The other thing that had come up in other applications is HPC comfortable with true divided light or versus the simulated divided light with a spacer. So I think the detail is always important when it comes to historic preservation. Then there are a few questions I have for the applicant, which I believe that Mr. Kennedy or his representatives will be able to answer them. And the only last comment I have is there's a lot of large shrubs in front of the building, which really block some of the beautiful view of the building itself. And that's actually probably right behind the public right of way. And just a recommendation that if, you know, in the future, it's in your budget to do some pruning, I think it would be great to be able to showcase this building more to the public. And that's all I have. Any questions, I'm available to answer. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I guess I'll turn it over to Ryan. So feel free to go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, and Elizabeth, and members of the board. Ryan Kennedy from Stevens and Lee, here for the applicant, the Nassau Club. I want to thank Elizabeth as always for her time on this and setting the table, so to speak, for the board and for meeting with the Nassau Club staff on site to walk through and see you know, if administrative approval was appropriate here, and certainly understand given the number of windows why we're here tonight to walk you through this important building for Princeton, and what I think we hope you'll agree is really not just the best option, but kind of the only option for continuing this building going forward for the club. I have a few people to speak tonight, but the general story here is that the Nassau Club has been a steward of this building for about a century now, and is looking towards it's a membership organization and looking towards the next century, and dealing with the challenges of a building of that age with a modern use. You know, applicants always come in and talk about energy savings, and this is less about savings and more about the usability of the building. And a building built well before 1978, you will see that these windows are not just not optimal, they're really not operable. And with things earlier than 1978, and I'm using my words carefully here, but there are concerns about opening up these windows that have been painted up and down for decades. And you'll also see, and it wasn't really mentioned in Elizabeth's report, but there is, as part of this program, we will be removing the, we think, quite unsightly 1960s style triple check aluminum storm windows, which have been covering up any detail that anyone has seen at this building for quite some time. So as part of this, we think we found, and hope you agree, the windows that best fit and are available to match what is existing, to allow the club to actually operate the windows, open them, let some air in, and not have the HVAC running, frankly, on parts of the shoulder season where they'd love to have them open and usable. And we think will actually be an upgrade visually. Now, we'll walk you through. This is a unique property in the district in that it is set back from the street quite a bit from most sides, maybe in the 125, 130 foot from the sidewalk. Maybe the closest in the 65, 75 foot range if looking down one of the driveways. So it is a little unique in its visual accessibility. Certainly is visible from the right of way, not suggesting that it's not, but the type of detail that you see may be a little bit different than something like the building next door, the former Packet building, where the glazing is right up on the street level or right in front of you. Not that we're suggesting that there should be any leeway. We're just putting that into context because we think these are the best windows that could realistically be applied here. I think it'll be an improvement in function for the club and allow them to realistically prep for the next 100 years of their operation and still be in operation, in terms of a cost perspective, and increase the functionality in a way that should improve things visually by removing those solid aluminum coverings and panes. So first, before I show any visuals, I'd like to welcome Pete Calloway. He's the club's chair of facilities. Just to say a few words, this is something that's been years in the making for the club. Originally, they had looked to replace the storm windows and came to the realization after maybe getting an administrative approval that was just not in the interest of the club. It wouldn't really solve any of their problems that they had and not be an upgrade visually, just kind of a bit of a band-aid. So Pete, with that, you want to say a few words about your work and kind of the club's investment going forward as stewards of the site?
Yes, thank you. It's Pete Calloway, and I've been a member of the Nassau Club for 55 years, so I can honestly say I've been around a while. I'm chairman of the House Committee and have been that for over 20 years. And I am a trustee and a past president of the club. So I have a good history of watching what has gone on in the club, and I am really very proud to be a member. There are approximately 600 members of the Nassau Club and about 250 non-resident members. So there is a large membership, and my charge really has been it's not like working with one homeowner. As most of you know, I've been in the real estate business for quite a few years, but we're really representing a membership of 600 people and 250 non-residents. And that is really a big charge. And I've honestly been working on these windows for a year and a half with the Nassau Club and with the town. And I think my concern is that we do the very best we can for the members of the Nassau Club. And in looking at these windows, actually my office was across the street at 24 Nassau Street for 30 years. So every time I came in and out of the front door, I saw the windows of the Nassau Club. And my concern over the years is the storm windows were half up, half down, sometimes out. And the visual appearance of the building wasn't always as we would like it. And in looking at the 83 windows that we are proposing to replace, my real concern there has been the lead paint. And I think that is something that we looked at. Could we try and repair that? But that really is just too big a job. And we weren't sure how long it would take for us to do. And the spreading of lead paint around the Nassau Club was a real concern. So I think I'm here to answer any questions, but I can assure this board, this isn't something that the club has taken lightly. We really are concerned, and I think our job is to do the very best we can, not only for the appearance, not only for the town, but also what's best for the club and its members. So
Thank you, Pete.
that really is where I'm coming from, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
If there are any initial questions, I'm sure Mr. Calloway's not headed anywhere, so we could also field them as we go through as well. Our next witness, I'll ask Steve, one of the club's manager, or I'll just say outgoing club manager, or his shoulder here, to introduce himself and his role here. And while he's doing that, if it's all right, I'll share my screen. We've collected some of the photos that we put together as slides to kind of walk everyone through what we'll be talking about. So Steve, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you very much. And I must start with Elizabeth, that was an excellent presentation of the club and the windows and everything. And so my job as the general manager of the club, I actually work for Pete in the House Committee. And my job is to maintain the club in the status for the basically 1,200 members that we have, whether it be operational or whether it's physical plant. And as you know, a building that was built in the 1800s is challenging at times to have it operate and function properly, because we not only have guests on the first level, but the second level is comprised of guest rooms. So these are members, but they're non-resident members, and they stay in those rooms. And the windows have always been an issue with them. They don't open, they don't operate, the storms are broken, there's no screens, and they're decrepit in a way of the factor of penetration from the outside air. I can't even rent those rooms, let's say January on through March. Anytime we get wind from the northwest, I can't get those rooms hot enough, especially third floor and on the second floor, which each room has its own HVAC. So the windows have always been an issue. It was later on my list before I redid and fixed the first floor. And we have a preservation fund, which is set up in the club to keep the building looking and restored as it should be for Princeton. It's excellent. We're very proud that that building, where it sits and how we've done it. Even when we redid the corbels up top and the stucco, we maintained all the integrity of what that building should be. So we were fortunate to find Rich with the windows and came through with the replacement in kind to do those windows as we sought for the project. Thankfully, the Preservation Fund had grown to a sizable amount, enough to be able to handle such a project. It's not inexpensive to try to replace these windows, but we feel that the R factor, the appearance, the usability, and getting rid of the storm windows, which do nothing but cause problems, and also they're dangerous because the people don't know how to open them or close them, and they could easily break because it's a large window when they come down. So that's our project that we've been on. I'm since starting to retire from the club, but I definitely want to see this project through. And we have a great team to set it up and make sure that it works well.
Thank you, Steve. But before we get to the details of the windows, we've got some photos here. We'll take. I know this is a building that I'm sure everyone here has been in, familiar with, but we can kind of take a walk through town just to orient everyone. So here's the street map of the area with Mercer Street below and Nassau to the left, and I guess University Street kind of left to right here, or University Place, excuse me. Next, we got a series of photos from, this is the type of district that we're talking about, is the type that we're interested in, the view from the right of way. So we've got a couple of photos here in each case with, what the relative distance is from, not the right of way actually, but from the sidewalk, just where someone might be. Steve, this is a photo here, from the first driveway on Mercer. It's about 65 or so feet from that nearest corner to the sidewalk. Is that right?
That is correct.
And then as we kind of move from right to left towards Nassau, you've got a kind of a relatively screened view next. Looking through the second driveway, I guess this is the out driveway, though.
That is correct.
Admittedly, I might have left the in driveway a few times to try to make the turn. That I apologize in advance for perhaps breaking a traffic rule, Steve. But
Happens every day.
this is looking down the out driveway about 125 feet or so from the sidewalk. And then interestingly, you can see the building from University Place. Oops, I went the wrong way. Sorry. So here's kind of through the parking lot. You can see, the arrow shows where this photo is taken from University Place there. I guess that's the former Packet building kind of in the foreground. So one thing that we didn't really include visually, I think in our original submission is much information on these storm windows. So what you normally, Steve, this represents I guess a selection of some of these windows covered with these aluminum triple track storm windows that are there.
Yes. Yes.
And I know we've talked about this with the operability, but it's been a good 5 or 6 years since there's been screens available to even try to operate. These have been just deteriorated into
they completely, yes, they completely deteriorated. They came off tracks, and once you lose the screen, then you lose the edging on the sides, and they became hazardous and dangerous for them to move them up and down. And so we eventually removed them because they really weren't doing anything.
And the final piece here, I've got some of the interior samples of the windows. You could see that the sashes have been painted, unfortunately, likely at times before 1978. And you can see the external kind of covering of the aluminum storm windows on the outside, kind of covering parts of the sash, creating its own kind of reveal aside from the windows.
And if you'll hold that picture for a second, you'll notice the latching on the storm. That's a very old way that they used to do that. If you don't get that exactly right when you lift that window up, it comes crashing down when you're not around, and that window eventually breaks. So we've had to replace storms, and a lot of them don't even have storms still in them. Remember, our second floor and third floor are guests, so they're opening to get it less hot, whatever they want to do, and it's very cumbersome to operate those things on the storms, if you can even get through the window.
Well, thank you, Steve. I also imagine it looks like you guys have done a yeoman's job in maintaining these over the years and cleaning them, even from these photos. But can you talk about, I think that's no simple task, though, with these type of windows, getting them open and cleaning them externally with the storm windows there. Is that, just describe that process and how you even deal with that?
Yeah, you have to, we can get to some of the windows on the first floor in the lounge area, not so much in the dining room, but they have to be done by a service that comes in, insured. You have to use the high-lows, or you have to use extension ladders. It's a dangerous product. Not many people want to do it. And so we only do them maybe once a year, once every 2, when they start to show very dirty.
All right. Thanks, Steve. We'll certainly have our manager available for questions, and if anyone has them now. But next piece is to start going through the actual windows themselves. So Ms. Capizoli, I'm happy to pause now for questions if you'd like, or wait till the end. So,
why don't we wait till the end and go ahead with the window expert?
Right. All right. So, Rich, thank you for joining us here tonight. If you want to just quickly give the board, your background, how you fit onto the team, and what your role is for the project here.
Rich, if you could, okay, unmute yourself, Rich.
Rich, unmute yourself.
Gotcha, Pete.
There we go.
You hear me now?
Yeah, that's great. Come on,
Sorry,
Rich.
guys.
This is your big time here.
By
Yeah,
law, that has to happen once per Zoom meeting.
It
so.
was well done. Well, Rich is a pro. He knows what he's doing. He knows all about Windows. Go ahead.
thanks,
do it.
guys. Again, my name is Richard Von Bortheld. With Hamilton Building Supply. I was approached by Pete Callaway about a year and a half ago regarding replacement of the windows and what could be done to them. I've been in the window industry for going on 33 years now. I've done quite a bit of work in and around your historical district. Have quite a few jobs that we've done in very, very close proximity to the Nassau Club. And I'm here to answer any questions that you guys may have.
All right. Well, thanks, Rich. I'm going to go back to our screen share. If I can find it here, we can start walking the board through which windows will be replaced. And there are a select few that are not being, and each time we can kind of explain why uniquely. So this is the front facade of the club here. I'll look, there's one that says a unit to remain. If I have it right, that is a bathroom window that has a uniquely unreplaceable venting system, and that window is being left off of the project.
That's accurate, yes.
Okay. And then as we get to each one of these windows has a type, and they fit into a chart that we'll get to in a minute. I'll also note, though, here on the upper floors with the dormers, there are some window units there. While those windows will be replaced at the moment, those actually, well, not at the moment because it's approaching winter, but those actual window units would still, I think it was one of Elizabeth's questions about whether those would still be needed in the future without additional HVAC upgrades for that floor. Those still would be used going forward occasionally for those rooms.
The answer is yes. The answer is yes to that. Without an upgrade of HVAC.
Excellent, thank you. So next sheet, Rich, another profile here with the types of windows that keyed to which will be replaced. This is more of a general photo showing some of the rear to orient yourself. This, Rich and Steve, this is the porte cochere and entrance to the catering area, and this to the right is the kind of outdoor deck behind the club.
Yes.
And then a view from the back parking lot towards the back. Here we have some of the additional windows that are being replaced at the rear, if I've got that right.
That's correct.
Similar rear view showing the other
Second and third floors.
There we go.
Ryan, I'm sorry, can I just interject something which I
Sure.
forgot to mention at my presentation is because the rear is really not visible from the public right of way, which really faces the back parking area and Edwards Place, that HPC would not be reviewing these windows back here.
All right. Well,
Just clarification.
excellent. So again, another rear view that will be outside of purview. Now, this wall is perhaps technically visible in places from University Place. So if you look between buildings and across parking lots, now there are a few windows here noted to be remain. Some of those are ones that have been perhaps retrofitted over the years with various vents and kitchen equipment. And then these bottom row of windows, Rich, those are remaining. Those are wood replacement windows that had been done at part of some prior project.
Yeah, late 90s, early 2000s, and they still remain in good condition.
Another slightly different view of that same wall, instead of from University Place or the rear driveway where that last one. So this is the view from the driveway exiting the club. This is the view from the, with permission, I assume, from the adjacent parking lot to the club, seeing some of the types of windows that are proposed to be replaced. And then with that, Rich, you have a schedule that goes through all of those types, whether they be 4/4 or the 6/6 types of windows. If you could now orient the board a little bit to the what was chosen from a manufacturer, what the options really were, and a bit of the detail about these windows.
Well, in terms of the options that are there are numerous window manufacturers, as everyone knows, but the window manufacturer who holds true to actual historic dimensions, details, the way the product is actually constructed, and creates a product that can withstand the test of time, and perform both with regard to your energy efficiency as well as your exterior finishes, is Marvin Windows and Doors. And as I said before, Marvin Windows and Doors has been the premier window for historic restoration in our marketplace here and in many other marketplaces throughout the country for quite many years. Company that's been in business over 100 years. The product that we're using is an insert product, as Elizabeth said, and you can see the way that the window is inserted into the existing frame in the next slide, Ryan, if you can drop to that.
Yep.
Okay, and on the left-hand side, you have the existing detail, and on the right, you have the center, you have the proposed, and you can see that the window inserts into the existing frame. The benefit of using an insert window as opposed to doing a sash replacement or a sash removal and rehabilitation is the fact that the frame of the insert window carries an actual rating. And what that means is that that window, that insert window, was physically installed into an opening and put into an independent test lab chamber and tested for air, water, energy, meaning R value and U value, the ability of the window to withstand the transfer of heat and cold through it, just like a piece of fiberglass insulation has a rating. The window has a rating. When you do a sash replacement, whether it be a sash replacement kit, which is a product that Marvin used to manufacture and did for about 40 years, the inherent problem with that product was that you were relying on the structural integrity of the existing frame. And in a lot of instances, even when the product was installed properly, did you get the look that you were looking for? In a lot of cases, yes. But the problem was that you did not really achieve the energy efficiency that you were looking for, because the existing frames were in such poor condition and were were unable to be rehabbed. With the insert product, you kind of have the best of both worlds. You're coming very close to what the existing dimensions are, but you're getting all of the benefits of a new window while maintaining the existing frame and not having to touch anything to the exterior or much of the interior. And in this case, with the Nassau Club, one of the biggest hurdles is the fact that they have a stucco exterior. And in order to do a full, complete removal and restoration, that would involve a complete stucco removal. And that would just take the project from one price point to a price point of maybe 5-6 times what it is currently. So this insert window really solves a lot of problems at once.
So, Rich, before we go to the next slide, two questions. So this is an aluminum, it's a wood window with aluminum cladding, and the color is it white or stone white?
Stone white would be the color, yes, for the
Right.
Nassau Club.
And then second,
yes.
I think you said this, but just since we are doing inserts here, these windows will be placed in the same opening, and we're not altering the dimensions of the framing of that opening. We're just
No, we're not
putting them in?
changing. We're not changing the existing frame opening at all.
Okay. And is it, I mean, in your experience, is that building permit even required for that?
No, it is not.
All right. So next, I think we've got, these are the spacer bars. So I didn't mention it yet, but there's a couple of different types of treatments for muntins, whether they be, true divided, which we can talk about whether that's something that's even available, or ways to simulate that with grill work. I believe on the right side here, these are the ways that Marvin provides for spacers in between the panes of glass. And just for fun, this is a photo of an existing window on the site, but that is a newer wood window that doesn't have any spacers. It's kind of hard to tell, but I wanted to have those side by side. But on the right here, this represents how the spacers are done based on the width of the muntins for each window.
Yes, and the sole reason for the spacer bar is to make the individual panes that are created by the muntin bars that are applied to both the exterior and the interior surfaces of the glass, is to make it appear or simulate a authentic or true divided light look. The reason why this technology was invented, and Marvin was on the cutting edge of that invention, was because authentic divided light has a few inherent flaws. The first being it actually takes you would think that by adding more wood, it would make the sash more structurally sound, but that is not accurate. It actually makes a window or a door less sound, less structurally secure. It actually is bad for the integrity and the structure of a sash in either a window or door. The other thing is it's actually very, very labor intensive to create. And there are certain tolerances when using insulated glass, which is what we use in this day and age. It's nearly impossible to create an authentic divided light with insulated glass and keep it thin, which is what most historic projects have. You're looking at either a 5/8 bar or 7/8 bar, an 1.1 bar, or 1.1 bar. And with a authentic divided light, there's just not enough meat. There's just not enough material there to hold or anchor a piece of insulated glass. So the simulated divided light with the spacer bar takes care of all those wants and needs and aesthetic concerns.
I understand there's been some advancement in spacer bar technology.
Yes,
So
yes, there has, Ryan, and our clients and our architects and our historic review boards are very, very happy about it. What you see in this picture is a Marvin unit that's approximately 1.5 years old. It represents the product that we're going to be using for the Nassau Club. However, the spacer bar that you see in the right-hand picture, you'll notice that it's an aluminum color. It's actually stainless steel is what it's made from, but it's a mill finish or a shiny finish. And what Marvin did about 1 year ago is that they moved to a standard as a black spacer bar, which is what you're seeing there. And what's really nice about the black spacer bar is no matter what color you're using to the exterior or interior for that matter, the black spacer bar just disappears. And to me, it appears more like an authentic divided light would appear, as opposed to looking at that stainless steel or mill finish spacer bar. It really does us a great service by creating that dark shadow line, as opposed to one that stands out with that shiny shadow line.
So the photos we're seeing here on the right is the old style with the stainless steel.
Yeah.
I guess orange means we're not doing that. And then green, while
Is
these
the
are
black.
color than proposed, show that kind of black spacer bar that
Correct.
more or less disappears into the muntins.
Yep, exactly right.
Quick question. Does that also come in white? Because the exterior, at least of these windows, is going to be white throughout. Is it just?
Yes, actually, we can get a white spacer bar.
I would investigate that.
No, it's a good, that's a very, very good point, and perhaps it'd be worth kind of looking at some I know the examples we had are the dark ones and the old style, but perhaps there's finding a white example might help show how that technology works now. So before we essentially wrap up with Rich's testimony here, a lot of work went into finding windows that as best match as we could the existing. And Rich, I'll ask you, you sell a lot of windows, you have access to all of the products. Are there other products that would have better matched? I know there's a few instances where some of the dimensions are slightly further than perhaps we'd want, or more than a quarter of an inch, for example, different from the existing. Are there other products available that would have given you more options? I mean, it seems like my understanding is that the club has picked at great expense the ones that most closely match the existing. Is that your understanding or your recommendation?
Yes. From an option standpoint, Marvin has more options than most other manufacturers do or will ever have. They've always prided themselves on the customization of their products, and the amount of options that they give us to do that are great. With regard to the fit and finish, and that goes to the quality of Marvin, you really are hard pressed to find anything that even comes close to the commercial grade finish that they apply to the product, and the attention to detail that goes into the actual construction and assembly of their products.
And I think you talked about the difference between the insert and what they might have used to call a tilt kit or the sash kits.
It was called the tilt pack, and Marvin made that product for over 40 years. And it was time to retire it.
And similarly, the difference between an insert and a new construction window, and why, because of the exterior stucco work that would have both compromised the exterior stucco in putting in retrofitting those in, and made the project uneconomical. Well, whatever the actual word is that I'm looking for, please insert it. But anything else you'd like to say in that regard? I mean, I just want to
just to really reiterate it. It's the fact that by using this product, this insert window, you're essentially getting a new construction, a product that performs like a new construction window sitting inside of the existing frame. If you were re-siding an entire house and you're gutting an entire home or building, it would not make sense to use an insert product. It would make sense to use the new construction product. But in the sense of an insert replacement project like the one that we have in front of us tonight, this insert product is going to achieve all those things. It's going to act just like a new construction window, but allow the customer to keep their exterior facade intact, and for the most part, their interior trim and everything intact.
And without getting into the actual budgets available, I think I heard multiples before in going from the insert to new construction, and then perhaps beyond that. But unfortunately, there's just not. While the club has done a great job in having funds available for maintenance, that unfortunately is just a level that is not available for the project. Whether that's even better or not, we're not sure. But that's an expense that is unavailable at the moment. So with that, I want to thank the board and Elizabeth, obviously Rich and our manager Steve, and the chair of the club's house and facilities are available for any questions. Hopefully we caught most of them in going through the testimony, but just thank you for your consideration of this, and available to respond to anything that the board can think of. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, I'm gonna open it up to questions or comments. Does anyone want to have questions about this presentation? Elric?
Our company has used Marvin products for many years. And they are recognized as being, a good product. On the other hand, Marvin would be the first to admit that about 20 years ago, they actually had a situation where for a period of time, the sash themselves, the wood in the sash was so inferior to the wood that had been used before that in the end, Marvin itself recalled that product. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, there's a lot more to it than that, Elric, but basically what it was is it wasn't specifically the wood because they've always used ponderosa pine. It was as a base wood. It was actually the treatment that they were using on the wood that was an inferior product. And they had made quite a few years worth of product with that treated wood, which was a product that was made by PPG. And after a long court battle, they finally won their settlement with PPG on that. And over the years, replaced thousands and thousands and thousands of windows and doors out of pocket or at a extremely reduced price in order to satisfy the needs of their clients.
Thank you. I just want, but presumably that is no longer a problem with that firm.
No, that stopped. Actually, the Pilt preserve, it was called the Pilt preservative inline treatment. That actually went out in 93, I believe. I could be off a year.
There's one of the preservation conferences that many of us went to a few years ago had a portion that was talking about schools, and a lot of the schools that were built very substantially up through the Depression years of the 50s and whatever. About 1970, people decided they were going to replace all the windows. And there was one instance where the windows failed, and I don't know whether it was a Marvin product or not, but when they were confronted with replacing them again within 20 years, the custodian said, I saved all those old windows, they're all in the cellar. And they replaced the 1970s windows with the ones that they had replaced. So,
that's a good story.
I'm still, I don't quite understand yet, because every time now across the street, for instance, the building next to Pete Calloway's that had the fire a few years ago, those windows were all replaced. We went out, Celia Tazalar, who was for years probably the most skeptical of window replacements on our commission. The two of us went out there and went through everything, and we had a window schedule. And I look at them now, and the mullions just look too narrow. Is that the area where the discrepancy is most pronounced, or is that my failing?
I think that what I try to do as a good steward to my clients is I try to match the existing profiles and construction of the windows or doors that they have as best as possible. I can't say the same for my competitors, and I see a lot of projects up and down Nassau Street, unfortunately, that have not paid attention to detail. And you may see button bars that were either wider than or narrower than what was existing. And it's kind of easy to tell by just looking at an adjacent property, because a lot of those buildings obviously were built around the same time, some older than others, obviously. But looking at the existing details of an existing window versus what was replaced, and you do see some discrepancy. What, again, and I like to stand on my soapbox about Marvin, and a lot of people tell me I bleed yellow because their yellow rose is their insignia. But one of the things that they do very well is they make an aluminum clad window to the exterior, which is again what we're proposing, that I defy you from 10 feet away or even 5 feet away, and some people from 3 feet away, to tell me it's aluminum clad and not wood. But there are competitors, and there are actually some products that I sell that are used in historical projects that should never even see a historical job because of those little details that I just talked about.
I'm very pleased by your level of expertise. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? I have to make sure that I do give an opportunity for the public to comment. If there's anyone from in attendance that has a question, they could raise your hand electronically. So Elizabeth, let me know if you see any hands raised.
Okay, nothing yet.
What's that?
Nothing yet.
Okay, all right. Any other commission members have questions for the applicant? I just wanted to reiterate what Elric said. You guys came really prepared, very, very detailed presentation, lots of information, extremely, extremely helpful. I mean, I wish every applicant had this level of detail because it makes it much easier for us. All right, anyone else have thoughts, comments? I mean, I'm very impressed by your thoroughness and your products and your approach. So nobody?
David has his hand up.
Oh, okay.
All I was going to say is that windows can be such a tricky element in the success of the appearance of a project. New construction, especially restoration projects. And it's something I've always been very concerned about, but I agree to evolve with these companies and their detail and their quality of product. And I wish the Nassau Club the best with this. I think it's going to be a better project than if they had done it 5 years ago. I think the materials out there and the systems are better, and I'm pretty excited about this. That's all I want to say. Thanks.
Great. Other questions? I do think that the products do seem much better right now than they were 5 or 10 years ago. Like there's a big difference. And I'm incredibly pleased that the exterior openings will not be changing in any way, shape, or form, so that our proportions in the building will remain the same. And a lot of care has been taken with the buttons and with frame details. So that's great. And if there are no hands from the public,
No hands.
no hands, does anyone have a motion? Or would you like, okay, all right.
I wasn't expecting this, but I will propose that we accept this proposal, accept this proposal. And
Okay.
we look forward to seeing its successful completion. And if there are other exigencies along the way, we would be certainly appreciate the club getting back to us if there are unexpected details that occur.
Thank you. Is there a second to Elric's
Second.
motion? Oh, thank you, Shirley. All right. Well, Elizabeth, if you could call the roll, that would be great.
Of course. Ms. Satterfield,
Yes.
Mr. Endersby,
Yes.
Ms. Lewandowski,
Yes.
Ms. Friedman,
Yes.
Mr. Shore,
I need to abstain, I'm sorry.
Okay. Ms. Capizoli,
Yes.
motion passed.
Well, thank you so much for coming in. Thanks for the great presentation. And we really appreciate the information and the education. So take care, you guys, and thank you, Ed.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Well done.
Appreciate it. Okay, that was great. Our next person is a concept review for 6 Evelyn Place to construct a new house. We did receive information in our packets. So again, this is a concept review, no votes, just feedback to help the applicant, get on the right track. So if you want to bring them over,
Yes, I'm bringing Jeff Fleischer over, and perhaps he could tell me who else he would like me to promote.
Good evening. I believe I'll be the only one at the moment.
Oh, okay, very
The
good, Jeff.
developer is available, but I don't know that it's necessary for him to join.
Okay, you let me know if you feel that he would like to speak, and we can bring him over.
All right.
all right, well, thanks for coming. And because there's no report, I don't know if Elizabeth, if you want to make any comments, or should we just go ahead with
I think that you could let Jeff speak. I didn't really have any conversation about the concept. They just submitted it and they asked to be on the meeting, so he can probably do a better job.
Okay, well, we really appreciate concept reviews. It's always so great to hear about a project at the very beginning, so we really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me. I don't know if we want to share the screen and show.
Yes, you can.
Go ahead.
Okay. Right. So the site is in the Jugtown Historic District in the R3B zone. We're proposing to do a 2.5-story, 3,000 square foot, approximately 3,000 square foot house on the one vacant lot on the street. If everybody's familiar with that street, I could go through the houses that are on that street. The first house, 1 Evelyn, was built in 1900. That's approximately 3,000 square feet. Number 2 was built in 1920, and that's approximately 2,000 square feet. House number 3 was built around 1910, and that's a 4,300 square foot house. I believe it has a gambrel roof, shingle style home. Number 4, Evelyn, that's a 4 square that was built around 1903. And that's the one house that'll be closest to where we're proposing to build. Number 5, which is across the street, it's another 4 square built around 1907, and that's about 2,600 square feet. And number 6 is our vacant lot. And then number 7, 8 is the house that's known as the Pines. That was built around 1880. And it's my understanding that housed the first women's college in New Jersey in around 1987 to 1997. It's currently a 2-family, and that's a Queen Anne style home. So if you look up at the top right-hand corner, that's the front elevation that we're proposing for our new home. If I go to the second sheet, here are some 2D and 3D images of what we're proposing. We'd also have a detached 2-car garage in the rear of the home, of the property. It's a mixture of hipped and gabled roofs. We propose a new cedar finish, which is a composite cedar that, my knowledge, is the closest thing to cedar because it comes in random sizes. So and it's installed like cedar is installed. It's just a product that has a 25-year warranty and it's very durable. And comes in a multitude of colors, including natural cedar.
Deb, do you think you have a sample of that you could submit to our office to look at?
Oh, sure.
That'd be great.
So we're just here to get feedback. I'm trying to copy some of the vernacular of the houses in the neighborhood with the gabled and hipped roofs, window sizes, and exterior finish. But still keeping the house with a more modern feel, so we're not copying what's on the block.
Great, thank you. All right, so I guess I'll just open it up and, everyone, if you have a question, please.
Oh, and I also wanted to say that we're not asking for any variances on this. It's a compliant lot, and all our setbacks, height setback ratios, FAR will comply.
Right, okay. So I think there's someone from the public who would like to comment, but before that, I definitely want to see if members from the commission have comments or questions, preferences. It's hard for me to see because I'm on an iPad, so I can't see the audience right now. Sorry.
Jeff, if you stop sharing, I think we can see who might
okay,
be in the public. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry. Any hands up here? Yeah, Elric.
I applaud the scale as much as anything with the rest of the neighborhood. It's a wonderful street. It's got a variety of interesting buildings. Obviously, the culmination being the Pines itself. Way back when I started the Recollector, we got a scrapbook from one of the women who was at the college, which was quite wonderful. We published a lot of those photographs. You mentioned, you gave the wrong date in by mistake. It wasn't 1987, it was 1887, et cetera. I remember I had friends who lived in one half of the house when I was in high school. A few questions, however. The existing lot, is that subdivided from one of the other lots, or was it just never built on, or something disappeared in the meantime?
I believe it was never built on. There is a small shed. I suspect that it was a subdivision from for Evelyn, the house to the left of it.
Okay. It's a small lot, as I'm sure you're well aware.
Yes.
And you've taken it, and it has because of the streetscape being at an angle, you've taken advantage of that in some interesting ways of sort of letting the volumes of the house step back from each other. I appreciate that.
Yes.
I think my greatest concern, one thing I keep trying to find, that one dramatic window, that's a corner. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's actually, yeah.
In one of them, it looked like it was it was fully exposed, but I'm wrong on that. I don't know.
Yeah, there is a tall window in the stairwell.
Yeah, okay.
I think that's the one you say.
The house is odd. I mean, I always appreciate the fact that when the major living spaces of a house don't face the street but face the yard, and obviously you've done that with this great room which incorporates everything. But my real question is that those large windows there and in the master bedroom above, I'm sorry, that's a the owner's suite above, look out within a very short distance on the garage. It's not much of a backyard. Have you played with any other options on how either to attach the garage or to reposition it so that you actually would have a yard back there?
Well, I did have a prior design where the garage was actually in the basement, and it was kind of a half level down to maximize the backyard, but it wasn't real effective in the design of the house.
I was wondering if you could do something like that and make the roof of the garage something like a terrace off of the back of the house.
Yeah,
But
the problem is because the site is so narrow, if you attach the house, it really can't be a 2-car garage.
right. Well, you're not the first to come to us with that problem. But it's I think it's going to be. I'm trying to figure out how you could make that garage, whether it's a trellis or whether it's trying some alternate things with the roof just to open up the view a little bit, because what's the distance from the garage from that back wall?
It's about 15 feet.
That's not,
And that the garage is pushed as close to the property line as it's permitted.
Uh-huh.
So I don't have any wiggle room in that respect.
And how close is what's behind it? Buildings on Harrison or which?
No.
The
No,
other side. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
this backs up to the
Or-
other.
Yeah. I don't know whether it's worth looking for a variance or not, but it just seems like an uncomfortable juxtaposition. The other thing being, could you switch some of the windows around, take some of the outlook from those rooms and swing the outlook around across the driveway or one way or the other? I just look at that.
Yeah, okay.
All right, I personally am really in favor of how you've broken up the massing of the building. And I feel like the roof lines are also pretty, in keeping with the rest of the neighborhood. So yeah, there's a whole lot of things you could do to make this stand out, and it feels like it's gonna sit back more comfortably than a lot of other types of styles. So any other comments or questions? Yeah, Christine.
Yes, I was just wondering if you could make that porch a little bit bigger by wrapping it around to the side and even creating a doorway there where we have a window. I mean, I just think it needs to me, the facade needs something.
Like another door?
Well, the porch looks so small to me that it doesn't do anything to the look of the house. That, to me, that's what I'm thinking. I just think it would enhance.
A little less foyer and a little more porch. Well, at least you can,
Well, even if it were brought all the way over quite a bit, or
Well,
maybe less foyer, it's a big foyer and I just think it would enhance the facade.
It would affect the floor plan, and it would make us have to push the house even further toward the backyard, which would be problematic.
Well, you have those windows there.
Are you talking about the windows to the left of the porch, the entry
To the right.
to the right?
And you have another long window, which looks like it's pretty the same length as the other windows and if you wrapped that porch around a bit to make it really a porch, because it's so small now that it's like a portico and not a porch.
Yeah, I'm right up against the property line, so I really, without completely changing the floor plan, I couldn't wrap it around. I mean, I could certainly look at it.
Well, where's the property line on here? I'm not talking about the front, I'm talking about the side. Because it seems like you have room on the side.
There is room, but then I can't connect it to the front. If you look at sheet A2, there's a small site plan there. And you can see that the front lot line is curved. So that's really,
Oh, right, okay, all right, yeah.
I see.
yeah, it's not a square, it's not a rectangular lot. It has that,
Oh. Mhm.
Right.
so it's,
Yeah, because I don't see a survey, let's see, yeah, I see what you mean, number 13, the side plan.
yeah.
And what's the front setback?
Well, the prevailing setback is 31 feet, I believe.
One other quick question on my part, that dormer, which is atop the staircase, is there some way that could be either that, there's so many angles and that, but I like the idea that which is closest to the street, the entry and the study office, whatever, that roof line is very pleasing to me. And I realize you're stepping that dormer roof by what, 18 feet or something like that?
Yes, yes. About that. Mhm.
It dominates maybe just the way the drawing shows it on elevation 9, but I just wondered if that could be played with a little bit. Maybe
Yeah, I think if
turning
you look
part
at,
of it toward just the way the section is above the den on that gable end.
yeah, if you look at the 3D images, I think that gives you a better sense of how far back that sits.
Okay.
But as far as like, I'm looking at like general objections or, things that stand out that wouldn't fly or, things that would be problematic. I mean, this is the chance to get that all out right now before there's an actual application. So just if you have anything, let Jeff know.
Again, I could see on the garage, if you could do sort of a sconset arbor going up, trellis going up on the front of it, something like that, where you could plant that out and soften the lines. So when you're looking, particularly from the bedroom, you'd have it would feel less like an obstructive surface there. Okay.
Yeah, that's true. Sometimes, in the application, it's great to have a lot more information on landscaping. Because that gives us a sense of the final product and what it'll look like after a few years.
I could definitely add that to the renderings.
Okay. Any other questions or yeah, Charlotte.
I was just responding to Christine's comments about the entry and just looking at, if you look at the house number 1, that, one thought is to extend your stairs horizontally. So the stairs are a little more generous, that they kind of span that whole entry.
Yes, and that we could definitely do, because you're allowed to have your stairs project into the setback line.
That's a great idea.
Wouldn't that be in the setback?
It would, but you were allowed for front front stairs to project into the setback.
But are you talking about pulling them towards the street? No.
No, I'm just
Talking-
talking about making
Okay.
it the same width as the porch.
Right, right.
I
So I
like that.
thought, you
Okay.
know, or, uh, yeah. Yeah, but
Yeah.
no, nice job.
I
but-
like that idea of, I think
did
the,
too.
the wider steps would actually,
More space for pumpkins at Halloween.
yeah, give a little more balance to that front entryway. Yeah, great suggestion. Anyone else? Any other, Elizabeth, sorry.
So I guess one of the challenges for this property is that it is much smaller than the other properties along Evelyn. And when I look at the photographs which you provided, which was great, I mean, I think it's wonderful to be able to see the streetscape. What seems to be a common element is that the houses seem more horizontal, even though if you look at the side by side for the house number 7 and 8, even though they are massive, but because they're attached, it has more of a sense of a horizontal grounded presence. And because your lot is narrow, I feel that it's more vertical because you're trying to fit the square footage in there. And I'd love to be able to see if maybe even you change the direction of your windows to be more linear versus height-wise. And I know the reason why you're doing that, but I feel that that might kind of integrate better into the streetscape on the other houses there. And if there's any way for you to make it less, I mean, I look at it and it seems like you're trying to fit as much square footage as possible, which I understand. But
Right.
I think that because you have a smaller lot, I don't think that by doing that, it gives the best design for the house or the neighborhood. And if there's any way that you can visually alter it, get the same square footage, but give more of a horizontal presence, I think that that would go a long way on the streetscape.
You could do some of that with landscaping too.
Right, landscape, as a landscape architect, we've always said, we always have to come and fix things up to make it better.
Well, this
The
has
camouflage.
got a gymnasium in the cellar. I mean, it could come me down a couple of steps, but it's by the same token, you're elevating the master bedroom higher above that garage. So
And I feel like the roof line is a little bit busy. And I'm looking at only from the streetscape. I'm not looking from the back because the preview is really from the front. So I'd love to see a little bit more simplified traditional roof line to go with the rest of the neighborhood, but I do feel it's a little bit busy.
Okay.
All right, now I think there was a hand up in the,
Yeah, someone wants to speak, but David's got his hand up.
oh, sure, sorry, David, go ahead. Somehow my view is blocked of that.
I'll be quick. I think that everyone's done a really good job of articulating what I was going to try and say. And that is that so many of the infill houses we see proposed for Princeton end up looking so linear and so tall on their sites that they don't fit in comfortably. So I think Elizabeth's hit it right on the head, but I think also picking up already in the design that it picks up the neighborhood has detail. It's not a lot of stark, smooth surfaces. This house has character. And I think that Charlotte's idea of getting the front entryway with the porch coming out a little bit is exactly in keeping with that. So I think this is a really good start. And maybe almost already done, but I'm liking it a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. All right, so let's go with the public.
Okay, I believe that, so anyone in the public would raise their hands. I answered to someone who asked if they could speak. So the first one here is Laura Landweber, and anyone else, if you'd like to speak, please put your hand up. So I'm gonna promote this person.
Okay.
Oh, I don't know what happened. Oh, here she comes. Okay.
Thank you. I have my video on now. And believe that I will be able also to share screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is lovely. Okay. My name is Laura Landweber, and my residence is at 3 Queenston Place, immediately behind this house. And so when asked what the view would be, the view of the rooms facing Queenston Place and back would all be towards my direction into the sunroom. So I highlight this picture first. You can see my arrow, right, in the red highlighted portion. Great. So lovely, the background of all the foliage is, of course, all of the existing trees. And that is the subject I wanted to specifically raise, the plans to preserve the trees or some of them, or to replace them, especially some of the more mature ones. So if we look at what is existing right now, so my house is back here. What offers current privacy between the lot, or if there were an existing house, or if there were a new house there, and my property, is wonderful mature foliage within 20 feet of the fence between our properties. So for example, right now in full yellow glory is a Norway maple, relatively easy to care for. It is actually exactly on the 1 foot from the property line, so it offers some privacy. But there's also a magnificent 100-year-old walnut 20 feet from the property line. So I was pleased to see that the proposed plans don't go all the way up to the rear setback, but more like 40 feet from this. So I wanted to ask if there's any proposed plan to or consideration of the possibility of preserving this walnut tree. It would be easier to preserve, for example, the Norway maple, that offers a privacy screen and some view to the residents on both sides. But the walnut is currently overlapping the corner of the location of the proposed 2-car garage. I understand there's already discussion about where that garage could be and potential improvements. But I'm also concerned about the tree root structure, not just for the potential of preserving any trees on this existing lot for development, but also the tree root structure from the trees on my property, since their tree roots would extend probably also onto this portion of the property over here. So that is something which is, of course, a personal concern, the preservation of trees on my own property. And the second is the concern about the plans for either replacing or preserving some of the mature foliage between the 2 properties at present. I also wanted to show, for example, I showed this here. This would, of course, all vanish if the lot has to be cleared, and maybe in another 100 years would come back, but it's very significant. If I may point out, of course, here's my location. There's a small typo over here. This lot is actually 3 lots up. There were a few other typos noted here in the general notes. They seem to apply to a different design because there is no existing property apart from the small shed. So here I noted on the drawing the location of the 2 trees in particular I'm referring to. The 100-year-old walnut tree is approximately here. Of course, these are just approximations that I could do. And the Norway maple that is a beautiful privacy screen and divide between the properties is located on the Evelyn Place side of the fence right over here. So the proposed seems to be 22 foot wide by 22 foot roughly parking structure right here would in its present proposed location overlay and preclude the ability to do justice to these 2 trees. What's shown in this orange rectangle is the location roughly of the existing ground storage shed. And one idea I simply had is that actually moving the parking structure over here, or even possibly tilting it like the parking structure next door at 4 Evelyn Place, could facilitate preservation of more of the green space over here, which also nicely blends in with a lot of open green space to the north of this property. So those were the comments I wanted to make, and I look forward to seeing, what the new designs are going to be and what the incorporation of landscaping proposed and any restored would hold. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for coming so prepared.
Takes me back to the Zoom lecturing days.
Yeah. Right. So again, landscape comes up several times. Jeff, did you want to respond to that or?
Well, there are some very mature trees on the left and right-hand side, or the north and south side of the property that we're going to maintain. As far as the tree in the back, there's really not an option to put the garage all the way on the other side of the yard. It just totally destroy the backyard. And we've
Jeff,
certainly
was
thought
there
about the
any-
trees, but we're going to reduce or minimize the amount of trees that would be affected. And currently the front yard doesn't have any trees in it, so we'll certainly be planting some trees in the front yard.
Jeff, I just have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about the driveway and the garage. Is there a benefit for the driveway being on one side of the house versus the other? Because you are on the cul-de-sac back there.
Yeah, well, it's more
probably
convenient
shorter
to pull off the
driveway.
cul-de-sac, and the driveway would be shorter in
Mhm.
that location.
I was wondering if it was.
And the driveway on the other side, on the south side, would destroy a large number of mature trees on that property line.
Okay.
It-
So you have there a side yard setback that's 12 feet and another one that's 8 feet.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, because you're supposed to have a total of 20 feet, and the smallest side yard can be 8 feet.
So you could actually have the 8 feet on the other side if you wanted to, right?
Yes,
And then flip it. So if you wanted to,
but again, there's a line of mature trees on that
oh, I
side,
see.
the 12-foot side.
Okay, so that's why you want to preserve that. Okay. No, I was just thinking, because I know some of the comments came back about could you, step it more to the side, but
I had one thought, and that is, and is it worth thinking about reversing the functions of the living room, placing the kitchen closer to the garage and the area with the biggest windows looking out at the space, of what remains of the backyard? I realize that changes everything on the second floor, which is where you've got an intricate intersection of extra spaces, but anyway, something to wake up and think
Yeah,
about.
no, I see what you're saying. It wouldn't necessarily affect the second floor, but,
Anyway, just some thoughts.
okay.
All right, well, are there other questions or comments?
oh, yes, there is some, let's see, Casey Lou Williams had her hand up, but she put it down. So if she wants to raise it up again right now and take James Beslady.
Okay.
I think that they're the residents next door. Oh, let's see. Okay. I'm sorry, Casey. I have to take this person first, but I'll come back to you.
All right, yeah, so bring them over.
Okay, this is James. There he goes. I'll bring Casey over now, but she'll just wait. How's that? So she won't think that we forgot about her.
Okay. Okay. All right, there's Casey, there's James. Hi.
Thanks very much for the opportunity to comment, and I appreciate all the excellent comments and presentations that have been made so far. Basically, 3 points that I'd like to make, if I may. First of all, while the drawings and photographs are great, unless and until you actually visit this block and see the historical character of it, it's very, very difficult to appreciate what's here currently. Houses that have been here for many, many years, including number 4, which is next to the proposed house, and also myself in number 8, which is part of the Pines, had been here for, say, over 140 years and the like. And some of the comments that were made about the proposed house being too contemporary, I strongly agree with, particularly with respect to the windows being too modern and needing to be more horizontal in scale. So I strongly urge the builder and the architect to consider that when they make their modifications. Secondly, I would say that the comments that Laura made with respect to the backyard and the trees and moving the garage to the opposite side, I think are critical, because what you can do there is basically balance out and maintain the integrity of the block. If you go across the street, there are two driveways that are right next to each other, clustered the way they should be. With the modification of moving the garage to the opposite side, you would preserve the privacy in the backyard for Laura's property. And there is no trees or vegetation that would really be diminished there. It's easily moved to that side because there's a shed that's already coming down right where the garage could be. And that way, you would also eliminate pretty significant, because right now you have a circle. So many cars come up that circle. If you go on Google Maps, they use it as a turnaround for Nassau Street. And the risk of accident coming out of that circle right next to that driveway that's in the circle is going to be significantly increased if you have a driveway that opens up into the circle. So I strongly urge that the driveways be clustered like they already are. An outstanding presentation, which I'm unable to duplicate due to my deficiencies with technical skills. But Laura did a great job. So those are my comments. That I think.
Okay, you're really fading out there,
Okay.
but I think we got it. I think we got it. All right. Thank you so much. All right, I'm going to go over to Casey.
Sure, thanks. I live next door at 4 Evelyn Place. And my question, I don't want to be redundant with anyone else. I'd just like to ask, what kind of effort has been put in place to preserve the beautiful trees? It's true that there's this line of large trees between 4 Evelyn Place and 6 Evelyn Place. And it seems to me if you were to build, with an 8-foot gap, yes, you would damage the trees and they would not work. 12 does kind of work. And so I'm wondering, with this driveway reversal, how close to the property line would that driveway be put in, and would it affect trees? I just don't know what kind of scrutiny this committee is capable of putting on tree-related aspects of preservation as opposed to building. So I'm learning here too.
Yeah, the driveway can be within 5 feet of the property line. And it would have to be in this case to get the house to work. That's why we kept the driveway on the other side. It was just the path of least resistance with regards to trees and the site itself.
Okay, so I can add there, I think that would take out 5 trees or so, as far as I know, but I'm not positive about that. That's just my vague impression, because the tree trunks are certainly within 5 feet. So I would just appreciate clarity on minimizing damage to trees overall. If that's something that can be spoken about right now, that would be great. If it's something that could be reported on in a more formal capacity, because this is a tree-filled lot, it's remarkable. That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, and the way the house was laid out, that was the intention because you're the closest house to our lot, was to give you maximize the privacy on that side, on the south side. Obviously, we're going to minimize the amount of trees because we appreciate the age and of the trees there, and the fact that they have created a natural buffer that we can use between the houses.
All right. Yes, Elizabeth.
So what I would recommend, because there are many comments about the vegetation on the site, preservation, retaining the buffer, that the applicant, when they come back with their full application, do a tree survey on their property for us to see, and that's usually trees 8-inch caliber or greater.
Yes.
That's required. And that way, I think that it'll give the commission a good idea if the siting of the buildings, both the house and the garage, work well with the existing site conditions. And I think that, being sensitive to the vegetation is important because I think that that will also help retain sorry, my light always goes off. The street, the character of the neighborhood, and really make it the new development appear like it's part of there instead of just clearing the land. I think it'll make a big difference for whatever gets built there. That'll give it a sense of place already, instead of having to put like small 2-inch caliper trees. It's going to take 15 years to be able to, become much of anything.
Yeah, again, the intent is to save as many trees as we can.
Right. And so it always helps to show plantings as well. So we have an idea of, sometimes that buffers the different viewpoints as well. So yeah, landscape seems to come up a lot. So I guess that would be a good thing to include.
Okay.
Any other hands up?
No one in the pub. Oh, I think Laura.
Laura, you want one more comment? You're on mute.
Going back to that same image that we discussed at the earlier part of the public comment, and since it has come up multiple times, could the driveway be moved? Here's the shed that my neighbor, I think probably at 8 referred to. And could it be possible to preserve the line of trees and put the driveway in the direction that currently leads to the shed, but make that instead the direction towards the parking garage? So I hope they could consider whether it's possible to preserve the line of trees as the divide between 4 and 6, but to have a driveway that would be on the other side. And I was also thinking to comment as a parent of teenage drivers that it would be much easier to back out into the larger street than into the circle. So those were the only additional comments I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, this is why we love concept reviews, because we can all walk away and think about it, and no decisions have to be made right now. So any other information we want to let Jeff know? Yeah, Leighton.
I just want to say how much I appreciate Jeff's listening to us as we rattle on. It's a very exciting part of the design process at this point when there are other possibilities that we've kind of bounced off of each other. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you for your comments.
Yeah.
Yes, thanks, Julie. I see that David Shore also has his hand raised, but I just wanted to say from my perspective, I have enjoyed this exchange of information, ideas. I want to congratulate Jeff on the presentation. You might have seen me opening it up. It was colorful. It was well done. And I really enjoyed it. I also want to thank everyone who lives on probably and possibly one of the most special streets in Jugtown for sure, and possibly almost all of Princeton. Evelyn Place is very, very unique, and I appreciate the passion that people have. I think almost everybody except Scotia's here, but that's good too. And my sense is that Jeff understands the importance of the history of the street and has taken a lot of time to do what he's done, and I'm sure he's listened well, as we all have, to I think what really makes it. This was probably one of the best illustrations of how this body should work that I've seen in a while, and thank all of you for your participation.
Thank you. And I just want to let you know that the builder and I want to work with the neighbors to ensure that it fits in with the neighborhood.
And Jeff,
That's
you can
nice.
always come back. You're not only limited to one concept review. So, we've had people come in for 2 or 3.
As many as you want.
Yes.
All right, Shirley.
Yeah, I too would like to thank Jeff and all, but I know the history of that street. When I was younger, my doctor was on that street. And also I know the history of the college and a history of Jugtown. And there was a man who lived in Jugtown who played Santa Claus. And his name was Mr. Henry, and he was blind. And my grandmother knew him, and he used to the children in town used to call him thinking he was Santa Claus, and he lived in Jugtown. So Jugtown means a lot to me. And I know that house is very not traditional, but I just like traditional. And I'm hoping that that house doesn't set a precedence for other houses on that street. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, David, I know you had your hand up, and I'm sorry, my screen is blocking your hand. Oh, it's not on. It's not up. Okay. Oh, sorry. Okay. All right. Any other comments? Questions? All right. Well, thank you, Jeff. And like, concept reviews are always welcome. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for your
Thank
time.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right. So our
Madam Chair, could we have a 2-minute break, please?
yeah, sure. Okay.
Okay.
Everybody come back at like 6:15. All right. Thanks. But come back. All right.
I was going to say that this afternoon, before I came here, this is not only my brother-in-law's 75th birthday, it's the anniversary of my 3rd grade teacher's wedding. And it was the first wedding I ever went to in 1954.
How do you remember that, Elric?
And I called, well, because it was my father took my friend Perry Benson and me, and one other, I can name most of the people from the 25 people in that class. But anyway, Miss Wenzel, who became Mrs. O'Grady that day, is still living. And I called her today, and I had this absolutely delightful conversation.
Her number.
And she, well, I call her occasionally, but she's one of the few people in the world who still calls me Ricky. And I'm one of the few people in the world who calls her Miss Wenzel, since she's been married since 1954. Her husband, unfortunately, has recently died, but anyway, it was a treat. So it makes me feel so young that I still have a 3rd grade teacher.
Wow.
We're having lunch in 2 weeks. We're going to meet each other for the first time since 1955 when her first
Really?
child was
Oh my
born.
gosh, that's amazing.
So she was married for almost 70 years?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
So anyway.
That's a heck of a run.
Yeah.
Will you see what you looking forward to, Julie?
Yeah. Oh, wow. We're almost at 35, okay? Wow.
That's good. That's good, 35.
Yeah.
I'm broadcasting today from my dining room, which I don't use very often.
Do you think I should stop the webinar?
This is something I thought you. We found this under.
Wait, put it in focus. Lift it up a little bit.
We found this in front of, up underneath the floorboards in the attic when I redid the house. It's a Chinese doll's head, 18th century.
Is it
Have you seen
porcelain?
that at all? It has glass eyes. Whoops.
Wow.
Wait, closer to, is it
You should take it to
porcelain?
the Antique Roadshow. It might be worth something.
Oh, I've got about 40 Barbie dolls from I inherited 10 years ago. What am I going to do with them? No, I sold a few of Phyllis's dolls, but anyway.
It's beautiful.
And the mantle, can you see the?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's lovely.
My house in
gorgeous.
Dutch Neck, and I reused it here. This is one of the 2 cooking fireplaces in the house. Anyway.
Beautiful.
So where are you in Ewing?
I'm almost opposite Trenton State College or College of New
UCNJ.
Jersey. Yeah, I'm right next to a savings bank.
Okay.
A half acre, which I've traversed a lot in the last, take leaf control. Actually, a week ago today, I was just coming out of surgery, so I wasn't supposed to lift anything more than 8 pounds, which but it's been great. That's great. They were in my heart again. This is pretty cool that they do these ablations, and I had a ball, one wonderful time. If I hadn't, my first love wasn't architecture, I must say, when you're in one of these hospitals and you see the level of care and whatever, and just good camaraderie, and I love all the kind of the depth, the gallows humor, which is really really funny. Yeah. So anyway,
if you want anything for props, call Elric. We our organization had a production at Morven Museum, and it was about a man who went to England before the Civil War to stop the slave trade, and he needed a table. He needed a prop for his presentation. He did about 7 different characters during this time. And at the last minute, I called Elric, and he had a table that he actually had to stand on that table and sit on the table. And luckily it worked. And the table was all right when you got it back, right, Elric?
the table's back with the.
And we thank you very much for that. But it was Elric who saved the day with that table.
Hey, Shirley,
Yeah.
did you get the recollectors I left on your front porch?
Yes, thank you very much. I meant to thank you in that letter. Did you get the letter?
I
From the
did. I got the letter, but it was, yeah.
No, I owe you a thank you note. The recollector and also the information about the Civil War, because I found out that my great uncle, who is buried in the colored section of the cemetery, was in the Civil War, Moses Van Zandt. So yeah, I was always trying to get information about him, and you helped me do it. Thank you.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
I had a little stack in my corner of my office with things to share with you.
Yeah, and I recognize other last names on it also.
Yeah, well, Scudder was one, and
one that starts with an O, who lived on Witherspoon Lane, and I want to get that lane named after that family. So it starts with an Onque. I think that's how it's spelled. Yeah.
Huh. All right. Well, thanks, everybody. I see Christine's back. Do you want to talk about the master plan?
Oh, here comes David. Okay, good.
I'll let David start.
Okay, David, do you want to talk about the master plan?
Oh my God, what to say? The work continues. There were errors in the information that Clark Caton Hintz put into the report. Some of it along the lines of just facts about buildings, and some of it, I think, about understanding what our ordinance does and doesn't call for already. And some of the things that we had written that we had hoped would be included in a new master plan are not there. And I guess that's not really a factual issue that is a mistake, which is what we're being asked to come back with at a special meeting that got called for tomorrow. So we'll just go back with our corrections to the mistakes. And then I guess at the next meeting, we get to come up with some of the policy stuff that we had included in our draft that we hoped would be in the master plan as it got put together. I think that's a pretty good summary of where we are.
You said in the next meeting, what next? Are you talking about the public hearing or?
Yeah, the November 30th meeting.
Because I thought that they intend to accept it or not. And I think if you have that, and I think I wrote that sheet out of different things that I thought would be, I don't know if you have that, Julie.
Yeah, I have it. And so I do think, obviously we'll meet tomorrow, but I think the intent is to get as much done as we can tomorrow.
Right. And I'm sort of still in shock because there were so many mistakes and misunderstandings on the part of the consultant who doesn't understand the legislation and the regulations for historic preservation. Because if they did, they wouldn't have put a lot of the things that they put into that document.
Or
And
left things out. Mhm.
and left things out, yeah, and it was pretty upsetting to me. So I'm just thinking about how we're gonna go through this tomorrow.
All right, well, just letting the public know that we'll be meeting and we'll be working out the revisions to the historic element. And so I guess that's good for the public to know. In fact, this right after this is public comment. So I just wanted to know if we do have anyone in the public that does want to comment.
Let me look. So if there's anyone in the public who has any comments, please electronically raise your hand and we can give you an opportunity to speak. So I'll give them a little time. Maybe what someone would like to do is kind of tell the rest of the commission who weren't able to attend, you know, what the process has been so far for the master plan, how the presentation was made by Clark Caton and Hintz to the public. And at that time, it was not for public comment, but it was just opportunity for them to speak. And then at the end, I think that there was some conversation that and questions that the planning board were able to make. And was that the end of October, that first meeting?
Right, that was the end of October. And then I believe it was November 9th. Was that right?
Yes.
That was entirely devoted to public comment. That was very well attended. I think 160 people were in attendance for that meeting. And it was completely filled for the most part with comments. Now that opportunity continues on November 30th. And, you know, it's not clear if that there may have to be another session for public comment. I'm not sure if there's any plans for that, but, you know, I don't think the intention is to cut off opportunities. I think there is some issue with people speaking multiple times, but I definitely think giving everyone an opportunity to speak is the part of the intention.
Right.
I think it's difficult when we had asked so many times to meet with the consultant and we were never granted that. And then we had 3 minutes that we had our say, and we really needed a dialogue.
Well, and that's why we're meeting tomorrow. And I really want to, you know, approach this meeting with as much goodwill as possible so that we can work things out and try to come up with an element that we can all be proud of and that we can all support. So, yes, David.
Oh, Shirley first. Go ahead, Shirley.
Okay, Shirley, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm on the subcommittee for the history, but I had some concerns about some pictures that were put in the master plan. And what I sent was I am trying to get through 200 pages of the reexamination draft of this readings. And I had 2 concerns. On page 192, there's a picture of Baker Street with no reference as to the name of the street and what happened to it. The wording that was there had nothing to do with that picture. So I don't know why they even put that there without explaining what that had to do with the making of Baker Street and of Palmer Square and getting rid of Baker Street. The other was, there were several historic pictures, and one was of the first Witherspoon School for Colored Children. The picture was there, but there was no reference as to what it was. And they had some dates from 1960s to 1970s, which had nothing to do with those pictures. So nothing was explained as to why that picture was there of the School for Colored Children. So that was my concern. Did they just put it in there to say we're representing the African-American community? Or what was the purpose of putting those in there? And then I got a response, and the response was, generally, we did not include captions of pictures due to time and budget constraints. So if they didn't have time to do it, they shouldn't have put it in there. So
Yeah.
that was my concern.
Yeah, I think
Shirley.
Shirley, I think they called out, like Christine pointed that out earlier.
Oh,
and
well, I
think
must,
that-
I left early, so if Christine, thank you, Christine, for doing that. If I had heard that, I would have backed up and said something that I had here today, but I got off by about 10 o'clock, I think.
I was pretty upset about it.
Pardon
Yeah,
me?
so-
I just pushed my time for an extra minute, which I
Uh-huh.
think was welcome, but I was so upset about that picture, I had to say.
Yeah, I was also, yeah.
And,
It was
and we'll-
appalling to have that included as the historic preservation entrance or introduction,
Right.
and to have it be such a horrible event and then not even to explain it.
That's exactly
Right.
what I was concerned about, and they did it
Yeah.
twice, yeah.
And I
Yeah.
know Leighton, you have your hand up. Go ahead, Leighton. You're on mute.
Yeah, thank you, Shirley. I've talked to Justin. First, let me say that there are no bad intentions. Justin's a young guy. Part of it was obviously not as well thought of as it should have been, but we've had a conversation, and those small things that are better easily corrected will be corrected. There'll either be a caption underneath of the picture, or perhaps it may not be the right picture to introduce historic preservation. But those things will be worked out. So one, I just wanted to share that with you. I also want to say that, as a liaison following in David's footsteps, I've always tried to represent the Historic Preservation Commission in the correct manner. In addition, I live in an historic neighborhood, so I'm pro-historic in that manner. And two, the sometimes challenging position of being a member of council and understanding where the vision of council is with regard to smart growth and affordable housing and everything else, including infrastructure, and trying to balance that along with historic preservation can be difficult at times. Julie talked about a meeting for tomorrow. Being transparent and fully honest with you, because this is the board and even the general public. Christina, made references to some issues, unlike what we're just talking about, pictures that can be corrected. That's easy. There are other issues with regard to scope, purview, how we operate, how we want to move forward with regard to what can be included, what should be included, what should be looked at, what are buffer zones, what are proposed historic districts, how many should there be? There are a lot of questions that we are going to try to address in tomorrow's meeting. And what I am suggesting is that everybody who comes to this meeting tomorrow should listen more than they talk. Because one of the problems that we've had with regard to this back and forth with the master plan, with Clark Kinson Hayton and all of these people, is that there has been communication problems on both sides. And if there's three sides, there's been communication on three sides, problems on three sides. And I, as the liaison, have taken time to listen to everybody who's got a stakeholder position in this situation. And at the end of the day, we are all going to try to meet each other at some level of compromise. And that's going to be critical. And I would ask all of us to be smart. And let me just say this. I was at a retreat that all of us were at. And one of the biggest things we talked about at that retreat, was to get a subcommittee to grow the historic preservation, not the board, but the Office of Historic Preservation. Because Elizabeth is overwhelmed. And could it be, and I'm asking everyone to think about, could it be that maybe she's got too much on her shoulders? And maybe if we streamline a little bit about what we do and get more focused on letting and trying to see if less can be more in some circumstances and in some instances. Maybe this body tries to do too much, and that might be an issue with regard to the master plan. Now, Justin's going to have to bend as well to take a look at some of the issues that we, and I didn't say you, I said we, put together on the table for as far as what we want to see in the master plan. But I would sit here, and I don't want to prepare everybody to think that everything, 100% of the things that we, the Historic Preservation Commission, want, everything, 100% of what we want, what we say that was in that 40 or 60 page document that we produced, we're not going to get all that. So at this meeting tomorrow, we got to decide what is important. I'll leave it at that.
Leighton, I'd just like to say that to talk to Justin, and that he's young, it has nothing to do with him being young. And I don't know if he's the one who even put those pictures in there. I was just responding to him. But I do have a question. I know we all have to do whatever you said, but that is something that should have been corrected because it shouldn't have been in there unless there was a reference to it. So that's all I was saying. And I don't think it has anything to do with Justin. It has to do with whoever put it in there. And I was responding to Justin.
Shirley, it was absolutely insensitive. It was a mistake, but we're going to correct it and move on. And what I'm saying is that was a mistake, but that's a correctable mistake.
But there've been too many mistakes with us, Clayton. I'm just concerned. There's been a lot of mistakes, and we have to correct that. Yes, you're right.
Shirley, you obviously are preaching not to the choir, but to the choir director. Okay, come on now, this is me. But what I'm sharing is where we can meet and compromise. We can. And Elizabeth, I'm watching your body language. I know that you're not happy with what I'm saying, but what I'm trying to do is to focus on what is truthful here. You know,
No. I agree with you completely. I mean, I've had conversations with the subcommittee, and we know it's not about whose fault it is. It's about getting it right.
Thank you.
That's
right. Thank you.
It's because it's not Clark Caton Hintz's master plan. It's not the steering committee's master plan, but it's the community master plan. So that's why it's so important to have the public comment as well, because even let's say the HPC wants something, but the public doesn't. You have to listen to everybody. That's just the way it should be.
But Elizabeth, that is exactly why I, Julie, Louise, even, you might be surprised, David Cohen. I heard from Roger Shachkin, you, David Shore. That's why we're having this meeting, because it could not stay the way it was. It was problematic, but that's what we're going to fix.
I agree. Yep. And I think that's why we're all coming together, because that's what we all want. We wanted to get it correct.
We want to
and have the best document possible for the next 10 or plus years.
Listen, I was at that meeting. I didn't leave. I stayed there through the break, and I didn't leave till what, 11:30, Louise? I mean, Julie, 11:30 that night.
Right. Yeah.
I was, listen, Christine, I heard you. I thought you was going to cry for a minute there, and then and Roger Shachkin is not a guy that's given to hyperbole. He was like, listen, he was emotional, and it made me emotional. I know how important this is, and it's a real challenging and difficult position to be in. Because I'm African American. I saw the picture. I know that Baker Street is Edgar Palmer's dream and an African American Baker Alley nightmare. I get all that, but I'm an elected official, and now what I'm trying to do is work to get this master plan on the table so we can move our municipality forward. So, you know, I have to work with our municipal staff and officials because, listen, I don't do this, you know. That's why I'm saying we appreciate everything, all the input that you've done, and we got to really focus on what again is important, and that's why this meeting tomorrow is important. And whatever we do between tomorrow and the 30th, please stay tuned, because what we want to come away with is something that, you know, the Historical Preservation Commission can be happy with, and that Justin will be like, okay, this works and this fits, this connects all the dots that we need to connect as a municipality moving forward. And it's a tough needle to thread on both parts, but that's why this meeting tomorrow is very, very, very important.
Agreed.
Yeah, so the only thing I would say, I don't think it is a hard push. I think that we all want the same thing.
We do.
So I think that it's actually a great opportunity for us to meet and everyone just, you know, to, hey, listen, how can we make this better? What needs to be done to get it right?
Exactly.
That's really the main purpose of the meeting. And I think that's not going to be a problem.
And when you think about it, and I'm gonna say this one last thing and I'm gonna stop talking. The last time a master plan was done was 22 years, this is supposed to be a 10-year plan, but the last time a master plan was done here in Princeton was 22 years ago. So think about it. That's why what you just said, you know, that's why we're gonna have this meeting, because the most important thing is that we get the plan right, because it's gonna be around for, we know, 10 years, and hey, could be around for 22 more years. You never know.
Occurs to me that at least 3 of us were on the commission 22 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. You know. So we have to, you're right, Sister Shirley, Elizabeth, Christine, everybody, we got to get this right. And that's
Thank
why
you.
that's what we're going to do.
doing.
That's what we're going to do tomorrow.
So
We're
just
gonna
to kind
be
of,
tonight. We got a time to start the meeting. We don't have a stop time because we ain't gonna stop till we get it right.
so
Right.
just to kind of, to finish up the recap for those commission members who weren't able to come, I'd say probably half the comments were about density, and close to half the comments were about historic preservation. And obviously a lot of that has to do with the fact that there is development occurring in a lot of the, you know, resident neighborhoods. And so their comments came out from that and seeing what could be done with it. Julie and Christine and David, I don't recall, you know, if there was any other points that came out as strongly as those two.
Right, those are the main ones. I'm sorry, David, you've had your hand up, and I just want to make sure that you get a chance to talk.
I can go after you. It doesn't matter.
No, go ahead.
I think three quick things. One is Justin is not the master plan, and the master plan is not Clark Caton Hints. And sometimes we lump them all together. I think if we're going to have any aggravation, it's actually with the professionals that were brought in to facilitate this for us. And that's a hard job. I've been a consultant that travels to communities all over the country, and to get the taste and feeling of a community when you're just a visitor is really hard. I did it many, many times long distance across the country. Clark Caton is right next door. It's so whatever shortcomings we feel, we probably feel more intensely because they should know us better. That being said, the next thing I wanted to say, it went out of my head. Oh, I know. respectfully, it's all about communication. It's trying to get all these ideas communicated back and forth. But Elizabeth and the subcommittee and Julie are pretty well aware of our many attempts to ask to have a dialogue, to give input directly to the consultants, and that never happened. And you take a group of citizens who give all this time to the commission year after year, and then especially in this writing and trying to review and give input and not get that audience with them. That's frustrating. And the third thing is, I think a minute ago, Elizabeth was saying that it seemed like half the comments were density and half of them were preservation. I think that's your takeaway from the November 9th meeting. But I think if you were to also categorize those two emphasis, or whatever the plural of emphasis is, in the whole document, density is mentioned and given, I don't know what the word is, many more times than preservation is. And I think that's what the community is responding to. And what I don't want to see happen is this big fight between neighborhood quality, not preservation, but just people's sense of neighborhood and development. You could take preservation out of that because maybe half the people who spoke weren't in historic districts, but we're talking about what's going to happen to their neighborhood. And I think we have to, I think in part what we lean towards is character retention, or whatever the word is. Whether people are looking to us for historic preservation observations, input, or just what intensified development will do to the places they call home. That's it.
Wow. Well said.
Well said. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, David. Thanks.
Oh.
Thank you.
Wow.
So,
Thank you.
thank you. So I hope we can all bring our best foot forward and tomorrow, and expect a long meeting because we have a lot to work out. Are there any other comments? Anyone else from the public?
I don't see any hands raised, but they do have time if they'd like to speak.
Okay, because I think that's kind of our last item, unless you have something for staff report.
I have nothing.
One question I have is, in December, are we allowed to meet in person, or like, what's the deal with this?
I think we can. I think that even Ed talked about it. I think we could meet in person and have our holiday party like we have had maybe 4 years ago. If it's something that the commission would like to do. I would just change the, I have to, put a sun, which is not a big deal, put a sunshine notice saying that it's going to be in person and not a Zoom.
Okay, we could do it in the community room.
Yes.
And our date is December
18th, I think.
18th. So yeah.
Yes.
All
Is
right.
it something that the commission would all like to do? Would they like the in-person instead?
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
Okay,
I
we
think
can
it would
have
be
a holiday
great.
party that day too. Okay.
And
All
we'll
right.
try to not drink until after the meeting.
Party with a purpose.
Okay, and next month we will have another concept review. I think someone's coming in. I think they're on Lee Avenue. They're potentially purchasing a property. They're kind of under contract review. So
Okay.
they'd like to come in for a concept, which we always encourage.
All right. Bring the eggnog. All right. I think let's see. I'm just looking at all the little buttons here. If there's more, I think we got the public comment down. I'm sorry, I missed that the other meeting. So if that's it, then
Oh, you know what, maybe, Madam Chair, if I could just share, because, when, when I went to the zoning board meeting about 28 Edge Hill, we had the resident come to that meeting who
Oh.
spoke about, comments about the roof changes and things like that. And, Julie had said, please go to the zoning board because they are the board of jurisdiction, which she did show up. So the zoning board had asked, well, what happened? And, and I did let them know, well, it was our fault. We didn't actually, make time for the public to speak. We, it was a oversight, not intentional. But when I did speak to Ed about it afterwards, I said, they kept on asking because they were looking for what HPC's thoughts were. He says, if that happens again, someone could make a motion to open it up again. Whether the decision would be the same or not, I guess it's just fair to be able to know that there is an opportunity for people to change their mind and the public to still speak. So,
all right. Well, I appreciate that. And yeah, as you can tell in this meeting, I was a lot more conscious about getting the public comment in. So I'll be, on guard to make sure that we're always getting public comment. And if I forget, just shout it out. Okay.
Is
So it's
there
really,
any way that if the public, we've said before that if we go back to having in-person meetings, then it would be less, it would be harder for the public to be part of it. Can we still have like a video feed to our meeting that, so somebody could comment in addition to,
no,
within
you know
the
what,
meeting?
Elric, the council meeting does that. They do a hybrid where people come in public, but then they can also sign in Zoom wise, but they actually have to have technical support for that.
Okay,
And I
okay.
think it's additional cost, so that's why the council does it, but no other board is doing it.
I won't tell.
So unfortunately, if we have it in person, the only way that they can, comment and see is if they come in person.
All right, I'm the one who comes the furthest.
That's
But
true, I'm
can't
sorry.
wait to get together again. And
Zoom,
then,
All right.
Zoom is
happy
better for old
Thanksgiving,
people.
everybody.
Yes, everyone have a great Thanksgiving.
yeah.
David
And
had his hand
remember,
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy
the-
Thanksgiving, everybody.
and for the public, remember, our meeting in December looks like it's going to be in person.
Right.
Okay.
Look for the notice. David, do you have another comment?
Yeah,
I
I'm just
can see you.
curious whether the whole municipality from all of their different boards has any sense of whether there was more public participation by Zoom or in person. I feel like we've kind of had more people. I can't see the dashboard, so I don't know. But it
It's
seems
greater
like
in
we've had a few
Zoom.
more people at our Zoom meetings than our in-person meetings,
I
which
think
is
that they-
very
I-
Better
interesting.
attended.
Yeah, I think that they attend more. I'm not sure that they speak more, but I think that they attend more. That's what my sense would be.
Charlotte,
Very
you-
interesting.
Charlotte has her hand up.
I do, because I've been on the public side of zoning meetings and planning meetings and town council, and I think, yeah, that it's easier, sure, it's easier to sign in than going there, but I think we have to remember that it's Julie with the, hand on the button. It's just a much different thing than being in the same room and, seeing someone's body language and raise their hand. And I think it's radically different in terms of how empowered you feel as a member of the public.
I agree.
Yeah.
I really don't think it on Zoom, you feel at the mercy of, and not that anyone, here certainly doesn't have bad intentions, but you really feel at them. So.
Right, I agree.
Just,
Also for HPC.
Putting on my public hat.
Most of the time for HPC, we're all about details. So products and samples, we used to pass it around. It's kind of hard to hold it up or get a photocopy, which really doesn't show you much. And the colors are usually not true. So that's also been lacking in our review. but we did the best we could with what we had.
Right.
Right.
All right. So is that it, everybody?
Can I make a
Everybody, thank
motion-
you.
Can I make a motion that we adjourn?
Yes, absolutely. All right.
Who seconds? David
Happy-
seconds.
Everyone, happy Thanksgiving.
Happy
Happy
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving, everyone.
Hey,
And-
Eldrick, I sent you a picture of an old stove. Tell me what you think about it. It's in a home that I may be getting a listing for.
Oh, okay.
Take a
Thank you.
look. Happy
And
Thanksgiving.
for,
everyone.
and for
Happy
those of
Thanksgiving.
you
Bye,
I'll see
everyone.
tomorrow, I'll see you tomorrow.
Adios.
Thank you.
Okay, adios.